Yoga is very different to the flow classes or the flow practices that you'll find around. Yin Yoga is very much about coming into a pose or coming into the stretch and then finding where is comfortable for you. So we talk about the Goldilocks experience, where you're either coming in too hard or too much, or it's too soft or too light. So you kind of want to find that middle point in between too much and too little. And then you just stay in the posture. In this video we're going to do I'm going to hold the poses for 1 minute at a time, but please feel free to pause the video, hold it for a bit longer. Certainly if it's too long, if a minute is too much for some of the poses, come out a bit earlier. But try at least a minute. The key to Yin really is coming into the pose and staying and allowing the connective tissue to gently unwind and soften and become more water-like. So I'm going to talk a bit about Chinese medicine just a little bit during this practice. Yin Yoga is all about traditional Chinese medicine and the meridian lines in the body, or the energy channels that the Chinese refer to as meridian lines, and stimulating those lines in the body to find the optimum well-being and health for body and mind through stimulating those key organs in the body. So the one last thing I want to say before we start is, in between each of the postures, give yourself some time to rest. It's called a rebound pose. I'm not going to talk you through that in this practice, just so you can do the practice at your own pace, really. You get to stay in the pose as long as you need. Today, you get to take that rebound pose for as long as you need today as well. So in between each of the poses, except one that you'll notice in this practice today, see if you can take even 30 seconds just to lie down or just sit in a comfortable position, in your most relaxed position, so that you can notice as the pose releases from the body. There'll be sensations in the body, maybe in the mind, and it's just an opportunity for you to tune into what those sensations are. And in that way, the whole practice becomes quite a meditative or a mindful practice, and quite an introverted practice. So a practice of observance and awareness. And in that way, you can clear the mind, relax the body, and really slip into this practice. So I hope you enjoy. That's not the last thing I wanted to say. The other thing I wanted to say was, don't worry if you don't have all this fancy gear, right? Yoga belt, strap, whatever you want to call it, fine. Get yourself a belt, get yourself a sleeve of like a piece of clothing. It doesn't matter, right? A strap or something you can hold on to between your hands, right? That's the key to the strap. Bricks, get a can of food, get anything that you can prop yourself up on that's going to be comfortable enough. I mean, put a blanket over it if you've got a can of food and that's not particularly comfortable. But get something. You're going to need something, right? Just to support yourself in the practice. Bolsters, you don't need a fancy yoga bolster, right? Roll yourself up a couple of blankets or a towel, a big chunky towel. Get it nice and big, right? This isn't even big enough. I would go another one, but get something so that you can relax on it and it can support your body. Blankets, just a nice, instead of bricks sometimes, just to support yourself under the body. Bunches of cushions, whatever you got. You don't need the fancy gear to do this practice, but you do need to be able to support your body so you can get into a comfortable position and stay. Because the key is stillness in this practice, being able to stay in stillness, in quiet, and just be. Start by coming into toe stand. We're tucking the toes underneath and sitting back on the heels. If that's uncomfortable, just prop yourself up with a cushion, a brick, something that just takes the pressure off the feet a little bit. But you want to feel this stretch down the back of the feet or the bottom of the feet, just opening up all of the lower body meridian lines in this pose and just starting to stimulate all of those organs. At any point, if it becomes too much, feel free to come forward onto your hands and knees and just tap out your feet. But for now, as much as you can, just see if you can soften into the feet, relax into this posture. Notice the sensations. Okay, and releasing now, just tapping out the feet, noticing those sensations in the feet. So from all fours, we're coming into rolling panda, or to start with, thread the needle. So wrapping the right arm underneath the left. If it feels okay, stepping the left foot out to the side, and then just rolling towards the back of the head. So this is the full expression as rolling panda. You're starting to roll, to look towards the ceiling, and you want to soften through the top of the shoulder, through the side of the neck, and through the jaw. So you want to start to feel this sensation through the back of the right shoulder. So as we work into the upper body, we're starting to move into the heart and the lungs. The heart is predominantly guided by the emotion of joy, while the lungs are more concerned with quite the opposite, that is grief and sadness. And as we start to stimulate these upper body meridian lines, we're just starting to rebalance any of those emotions, perhaps any of the tightness in this area. It's really common for the upper body, especially around the shoulders and the neck, to be a place where we hold a lot of tension, just as a habit. So releasing that side now. This is the only pose where we don't come into a rebound lying on our back. So just taking a little cat-cow stretch to release the shoulders here before you come onto the other side. So just taking the left arm underneath the right now, and taking your variation, whether that's staying in thread the needle, so keeping both knees underneath the hips, or if you're stepping the right foot out to the side of your mat. And again, just softening through the neck, soften your jaw, and see if you can soften into the back of that left shoulder. Sometimes not as easy to feel the sensations of this pose unless you can really relax into it. But you really want to feel that stretch into the backs of the shoulder blades, the top of the shoulder. The higher the hips are, the more you're driving the weight down onto the shoulder. So you're increasing the pressure onto that shoulder as much as you can relax into it. So just keep reminding that space to relax. Notice as the body softens into it. Okay, let's release it. Coming up to all fours. Inhale, lift the chest. Exhale, pressing into the shoulder blades, arching up to the sky. We're moving into a straddle now, or it's called dragonfly in Yin. So grabbing your bolster or your props to just allow your upper body to rest on something. We're taking the elbows onto whatever that support is. So to start with, wrap your right arm underneath the left for eagle arms. You can clasp the hands or take them into prayer, whatever works for you. Some of you might need to just take the hands and rest them on the shoulders if you can't quite get the hands interlaced. But you're taking the elbows as far forward as you can to start to work into the upper body. So you're still feeling that stretch across the back of the shoulders, but you're also feeling it down the inside of the legs. And as we work into the inside of the legs now, we're moving into the liver meridian line. So that process of detoxification in the body, and the sense of being able to let go. So just notice, just for the next few moments, where it is in your body that you can let go. Notice if the muscles are hanging on. Just gently releasing the arms here. We're staying in the wide-legged fold, but changing the arms. So take the left arm underneath the right now. So the elbows are stacked. Take the elbows as far forward as is comfortable for you. And over time you might be able to wriggle them forward just over the next minute or so. But otherwise just stay exactly where you are. See if you can soften the upper back. Let go of the legs. And if it feels nice, closing the eyes as you rest the head in that little nest that you've created for your arms. Notice if it's a frustrating place to be. The liver is associated with irritations and anger. Be okay if it's frustrating. Be okay if it's not that comfortable. slowly release. Just taking away your props. Coming into a cross-legged position. So you might stay in a loose cross-legged position. For some of you who want to take it a bit deeper, we're coming into square pose. So we're taking the foot up over the opposite thigh. Let the ankle hang off the other edge. Now if this is too much, staying in a seated position, taking the right foot across the thigh but keeping the left foot on the floor and then lifting through the chest. So that option is just called seated swan. But if you're staying with square pose, we're taking the arm, binding them behind the back. So taking your strap or your sleeve, whatever you've got, your right arm is up over the head, left hand wraps behind. Some of you might not need the prop, you might be able to catch your hands, and that's okay. So go ahead and do that. But if you need the props, then use them. And as much as you can, you want to be able to rest your head on something. So use your pillows, your cushions, your bricks, whatever it is, so that you can soften through the neck. Take the weight of the head out of this pose so that you can really relax into this. You want to feel this in the back of that right hip, so in that bum cheek, as well as through the shoulders if you've got the bind with the arms. Notice the breath. Not changing the breath, we're just noticing where it is. The breath tells us stories. When it changes, we know something's happening, something's shifting or something's changing. Let's come on to the other side now. So taking your variation, whether that's cross-legged position, square pose, or the seated swan, taking your strap, if you're taking the bind in this position, and we're gently folding forward. Notice if it feels different on this side. One hip may be more or less comfortable than the other. And know that when we fold forward, anytime we fold forward, we're stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's that system that reminds the body, reminds the mind to relax, to rest and digest, and allow the body to come back into equilibrium. We're so good at being on, moving, going, making ourselves busy or filling our time, that actually that system just needs a little reminder that it's okay to stop, it's okay to slow down. Forward folds just do that for us. So let's release that side. Moving any props out of the way. So we're coming into a straddle pose. So you may or may not be able to do this with both knees bent behind. If you're okay with both knees bent and sitting between the heels, go ahead. Otherwise, do one side at a time. Otherwise, we're coming into what's called cat's tail, which you can see the second option on the bottom of the screen right now. You're dropping the top leg in front, catching the other foot from behind. You're just resting your head either in your hand or on your arm. But you want to feel this stretch through the front of the legs, or leg, depending where you are. And as we work into the front line of the body now, we're working into the stomach meridian line as it runs up over the thigh, up over the front of the stomach, up over the front of that hip there. And if you have the arms up over the top of the head, you're working up into the heart, the lungs. So lots of stuff going on in this pose now. Depending where you feel it in this pose is probably the organ that you're stimulating the most. So when you think about the stomach, it's that organ that is dealing with obviously digestion and our ability to take nourishment into the body and then use that fuel and turn it into energy. So for some of us who feel lethargic, who feel stodgy, who feel like their digestive system doesn't move as well as it should, this is just helping to rebalance any of that stuff. We're moving on to the second side now. So whether you're working with half saddle, if you're still in the full saddle with both legs, or if you're coming into the other side with cat's tail, just choosing your variation and coming on in. But that stomach meridian line is also concerned with anxiety and worry. So we're just starting to regulate some of those emotions as well. So if you feel like it's quite tight over the front of the leg, or if you feel like your stomach starts to gurgle even in this pose, that's really normal if you have an imbalance in your stomach line. Just as much as you can, start to switch off the muscles, relax into it. Just for a few more moments now. And slowly releasing. So taking your bolster or your blankets, whatever you have, just propping yourself up, allowing the spine to lie along whatever those supports are for you. Soles of the feet are touching, the knees are hanging out to the sides. If you need something underneath the thighs, just if that feels uncomfortable on the inner thighs, or if you feel like you have to hold your legs in this position, prop them up with something underneath the thighs, just so you can really soften into this, allow the hips to open out. Again, if it feels nice to take the arms up over the head, otherwise just allowing the arms to rest down by your sides, palms face up. Close the eyes. Notice as the body softens into this posture. Notice where you feel the sensations. As we open out across the chest, across the heart, it can feel quite vulnerable for some people to open out through the heart and the chest. We're so used to hunching forward, protecting ourselves, but just allow yourself to open up now. As you just lie here for the next few moments, taking this time for yourself. And take the time now to stay as long as you need.